How does one become a content creator? I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna try to find out by using ChatGPT. And the thing is, I don't think my life is that interesting that I want to broadcast my entire life to so many others, right? But I do think that there's probably a handful of people out there who would benefit from my content. So that's basically what I'm gonna try to do. And I know I'm in frame right now. As I said, I'm not a content creator, right? So I know I'm in frame right now, but I'll turn back the screen because I keep looking at myself, and I don't think that's useful. So this is what I did, right? I basically filled up ChatGPT, if that makes sense, with my life story. So this is what it looks like. I'll answer everything in the transcript. I asked about what kind of background information ChatGPT needs in order to understand me as a person and everything. Then on my computer, I turned on the transcript mode and I basically told my whole life story, or at least the part that's relevant, I think, for my potential audience. And just for reference, I'm gonna focus on building my Instagram following in the next coming months. It's September 2nd, so we're in the last month of Q3. And for those who don't know me, my name is Floris van Vleuten. I own Amplifize, which is a Google Ads agency. And I've been building that for the past couple years. It's been grown out to be something that I'm really, really proud of. We are with a team of 9 people in-house, or not in-house, but like 9 team members, and then some additional help, like a VA, somebody who helps us with the funnels, a setter. So everyone included, we would be with 12 people building one company, which I one day created. So that's pretty awesome. And what we do basically is we manage Google Ads strategies and Google Ads accounts basically for e-commerce brands, right? And or e-commerce businesses. So we do both brands and dropshipping clients, and we've grown that to 90 managed accounts, like actively managed accounts. But it didn't fall out of the sky, right? So I do have some valuable lessons that I do want to share with you. So as I said, I put everything in ChatGPT. It's September 2nd, 2025. And right now my Instagram is at 1,857 followers. And I have 26 posts live right now. So yeah, I'm gonna try this whole content thing out for the next 4 months at least. And let's see where it will end up. So back to ChatGPT. So what I did is I threw in my whole life story there, and now I'll try to test if ChatGPT would be a good podcast host, right? Because I want to do this in English because I want to be profound in just talking to a camera, but also talking English, right? And I'm aware that I still have a Dutch accent, and that's not a big problem for me. But I do think that the more I practice to talk English, the better it will get. And if at some point I will be like decent, I think I can reach more people with a positive message than I would do it just in Dutch, right? If that makes sense. And I did some Dutch podcasts already, like physical podcasts and online podcasts. And I also did some English ones, like 1 or 2. But the content that I could get from those interviews wasn't as good as I was hoping, right? So instead of trying to reach out to a podcast and doing my story there and trying to make it very inspirational and everything, I just want to share the lessons that I got in the past couple of years, because I've been building this for the past, I would say, 5 years-ish. And again, it didn't fall out of the sky. So I basically threw my life story into ChatGPT, and now I will try out if ChatGPT can be a good podcast host. So I asked it if it would be able to do that, and it said something like, yeah, we can use voice mode. I'll ask you the questions. You can answer in a natural flow, just like you would on a podcast, and I'll keep the conversation moving, asking follow-ups and diving deeper. Interesting. And at the end, you basically have a practiced or even recorded full podcast interview, which is right now. You get comfortable with your story, your pacing, your sound bites, and if you want, I can even design a full interview flow for us to run live in voice mode. So intro, backstory, struggles, growth, expertise, lifestyle, and closing. So let's try it out. I hope you guys can hear it if I broadcast this like that. But hey, ChatGPT, I already turned on my camera, so I want you to take the lead in this interview, and let's just see how far we can come, okay?
Absolutely. I can see you, so let's roll with it. I'll be your podcast host for today. So, welcome, Floris, to our little impromptu podcast. Let's dive right in. For everyone listening in or watching, let's start off with a bit of your story. Floris, tell us about that moment you realized the normal path just wasn't for you.
That's actually a good question. So, it basically started in 2017 when I was going to study communications, right? And I did study it, so I was a student, but I was partying more than actually studying. So I was pretty much failing all my exams. I was having a lot of fun though, so it was worth it in the end. But after 2-3 years, I realized that the whole getting my degree, then working for a boss, that the whole idea sounded not ideal for me, right? So what I basically did is, at the time, I was scrolling through Instagram a lot, and like most of us back then, and I discovered some way, or multiple ways actually, of making money online instead of getting a degree and working for a boss. And the particular business model that I stumbled upon was e-commerce. So I wanted to get into e-commerce, basically convinced my parents that I could take a year off trying to make money that way. And they agreed to it. So that was going to be an interesting year. And after I had some conversations with the people around me, I got the insight that it would probably be smarter to try and learn skills that come with selling a product and then provide those as services to other businesses, because my time is 100% profitable. And if I would start an e-commerce company or a brand or dropshipping, I would need more investment and knowledge about the entire space, right? So I started off with just Facebook ads courses and Google Skills Shop courses and whatnot, and some books. And after that, I started cold emailing all the other agencies in the city that I was living in back then. And one guy actually replied saying, "Hey, let's drink a cup of coffee. Maybe I can help you." And without asking anything from me, or without demanding my time or whatever, he basically connected me with 2 clients. One was an agency where I could start some freelance jobs and basically learn on the go while I was getting paid. And the other one was a direct client, which was just a small restaurant where I would need to run the Google ads for. And this was all, I would say, mid-2020, so around 5-ish years ago. And that basically was the whole starting point of my, I would call it, an entrepreneurial journey, right? And it didn't, as I said at the beginning already, it didn't fall out of the sky. But I got some clients, I got the ball rolling, which was the most important thing. And once you get the ball rolling, more things start to accumulate. Like my skills, I got in touch with the right people. Then actually after I saw some success, because back at the time I was living with 18 others in a student house, which isn't the most productive environment, right? Let's be real. So I decided to rent my own office with the first agency guy who connected me to the other people. So that was a very interesting step, and that basically skyrocketed my productivity. And also just working in an office that I rented at, I think I was 21 back at the time, just felt such a step forward comparing myself from 1 year prior, where I was lost back then. So anyhow, long story short, I got into the service-based side of things in 2020-ish, got my own office, productivity skyrocketed, and then one client led to the other. And fast forward 5 years later, I'm building a Google Ads agency for e-commerce, which was my first business model that I already wanted to do something in. and now managing over 90 clients. So that's pretty cool.
That's an awesome journey, Floris. Thanks for sharing that. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that whole path from student life to figuring out your own way in business. Let's dive into another angle for the podcast. For everyone listening who's curious, let's talk about a big challenge. What would you say was the toughest part about shifting from doing everything yourself to actually building out a team?
Wow, that's an interesting question. So what basically needed to shift, because I made a couple mistakes there. What basically needed to shift is instead of me fixing all the issues, I had to think a couple steps forward and then look for people who would be able to fix potential issues, if that makes sense. So what I did at the beginning is an issue occurs and I try to fix it myself, and I am to blame if I mess it up, right? So I take full responsibility for everything, and it gives me a lot of control as well. But it's also not scalable at all. So at some point I decided to hire two freelancers to help me delivering the jobs. And it was specifically Google Ads already. So this was, I think, 2022 or something. Yeah, because they were freelancers and I was just unexperienced with hiring team members. I basically hired the wrong people who didn't really have an incentive to work day and night or give it a full 110% for those clients, because those clients weren't theirs, right? So if they made mistakes, I was to blame. And that was pretty tough. So I had to let them go. And then I think what enabled me to hire the right person was actually making those mistakes in the first place. So I made those mistakes, I reflected on what went wrong, and then about a year later, I felt that I was ready again to hire a new team member. And this time it wasn't just a part-time freelancer, but it was a full-time team member. And that really changed something, because if somebody is a full-time team member, they have to have the same vision, the same mission, and they can work the full work week on that specific company. And in this case, it was my agency. So that basically skyrocketed the entire agencies, because that basically made it an agency. Entire agency's productivity, because that new team member, Dennis, could focus on delivering the services, while I could make sure that there was new business coming in as well, which enabled me to go more into LinkedIn content, for example, building partnerships, asking clients for referrals, because Dennis was delivering pretty good results. And yeah, that between the first hire and the 10th hire was a little over a year actually. So that's pretty insane if you ask me. So yeah.
Absolutely. And that's such a real insight. It's that shift from being the solo problem solver to actually trusting a team member with your vision and letting them run with it. And I think a lot of people listening will really get that, because it's a big leap that makes a huge difference. So thanks for sharing that, Floris. I think we've covered some great ground already. Let's wrap this segment up here, and we can always dive into more in the next round. Thanks for being game for this little podcast experiment.
Hell yeah, let's move on to the topic right away. The next topic, let's go.
Absolutely, let's keep rolling. All right, for the next topic, let's dive into something a lot of listeners are probably curious about. Mindset shifts. You've obviously had to change your mindset along the way, especially from that student life to running a successful agency. So what would you say was one of the biggest mindset shifts that really helped you go from just getting started to actually scaling up and finding success?
In the end, I think it's the ability to solve the right problems. So if I could elaborate a bit on that, in the beginning, you're just solving as many problems as possible. If you're growing, the problems, the level of certain problems becomes higher and lower. So you have multiple problems at multiple levels. And I think in terms of mindset shifts, you have to learn what the biggest problems are, which problems have the priority, and then solve those. And that can be on like a client level. So one client could have one big problem that you need to solve, but it's also looking a couple steps forward for the agency, right? So for example, I think it was June 2024, so a little over a year ago, The agency wasn't doing that well at all. We just had we had one partnership which was delivering most of our revenue, and they decided to take Google Ads in-house because we were too expensive, right? And then we basically lost all of our revenue, and instead of, I don't know, panicking and everything, I realized that client acquisition at that moment was the biggest bottleneck in our company. So I just really doubled down on that. I started working fucking 60 hours a week just on client acquisition. And after a couple weeks, because you need to be patient, but after a couple weeks, hard work did pay off, and we landed a couple clients, a couple big ones actually, delivering maybe 1K a month, maybe 2K a month. And from that point on, we had basically a bit more room to breathe, if that makes sense. And from there, we could go even more into client acquisition. Then a couple months later, because we had good cash flow, we could invest the cash flow in new partnerships, in new media, in new ads, new ad spend for our own client acquisition. And then the whole graph turned into like a hockey stick, you know? So it grew exponentially from there. And for example, November 2024, I don't know the exact number, but we had like 20 clients. And it's now 10 months later, and we have more than 90 clients, or 90 clients plus, right? So that increase, the exponential growth will follow as long as you keep going. That's at least what I think. And setbacks are only here to teach us a lesson. So we cannot lose if we don't quit. That's at least how I see it.
That's a really powerful takeaway. And I love that mindset. It's all about identifying the biggest bottleneck, going all in to fix it, and then letting that momentum carry you forward. And you're right, once you push through those setbacks and keep going, that's when you start seeing that exponential growth. So thanks for sharing that, Floris. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people who are in that stage of figuring out their biggest bottlenecks and just need to keep pushing. Thanks for diving into that.
Maybe, Chat, it's an idea, because I look at my watch. In about 10 minutes, I have a meeting. So maybe let's go into the closing part of this podcast and try to answer one or two very good questions to close this podcast off with. Okay?
Absolutely. Let's wrap it up on a strong note. I'll throw you a couple of solid closing questions. So here's one. If you could give just one piece of advice to someone who's maybe a couple years behind you on this journey, someone starting out, building their own agency, or just trying to carve their own path, what's that one piece of advice you want to leave them with? And then after that, we'll wrap up the podcast.
Okay, cool. So I think the most powerful piece of advice that I can give from my position is to realize that if you're in business, if you're a business owner, or if you're a freelancer, whole business basically consists of two parts, which is client acquisition and then client retention. So acquiring clients is like your own marketing, your own sales, and getting referrals, maybe. And then the second thing is client retention. So actual service delivery, client communication, and then also if you're getting amazing results, that contributes to getting more referrals, right? And I think you have to divide your week as a founder or as a freelancer into at least investing time in both parts. So whether you buy resources, so like a team member, for example, to deliver on the work, which helps with client retention, you basically enable yourself to go more into client acquisition, right? And the whole client acquisition part is almost an entire business in and of itself, like apart from all the referrals that you're getting. Because as, for example, an agency owner, you have to build a personal brand, you have to run funnels, maybe you have to do email marketing, you have to build partnerships, and so on and so forth, right? And that's a very big chunk of the business is client acquisition. So acquisition is very important. And then client retention, so service delivery, is maybe even more important if you want to sustain and if you want to grow. Because if you're like able to acquire clients but they leave after the third month, like always, you cannot build a business based off of that, right? So what you want to have is nailing the retention part, so to make sure that all clients stay for at least 12 months, if not longer. and that the reason that they leave isn't the quality of the service. So that's one part, and if you have nailed that, that enables you to spend more time into the whole client acquisition part, which is, as I said, a whole business in and of itself. But if I can make this in a TLDR, I would say use your calendar wisely. Spend 50% of your time as a founder of an agency in this specific case to acquiring new customers, and then 50% to retaining new customers, retaining your existing customers. And if you focus your time on that and really work on the right tasks, which you also have to put in your calendar, I think in the end you will make it, and you only have to be patient and willing to keep on working.
That's fantastic advice and a perfect note to end on. Really focusing on that balance between bringing in new clients and then delivering so well that they stay, that's a huge key to sustainable growth. And I think anyone listening is going to take that to heart. So thanks so much for being on this podcast experiment, Floris. It's been a blast, and good luck with your meeting. We'll wrap it up here.
Thank you so much, Chad. I have one final question actually for you, because you have so much information about me based on this interview and all the inputs that I gave you. Do you maybe have a lesson for the audience as well, based off of my story and my insights, that you had really taken from this podcast interview or this chat that you want to give to the audience?
Absolutely, Floris. One big lesson that really stands out from everything you've shared is the idea that success isn't about some overnight transformation or a single magic moment. It's really about being willing to start messy, learn along the way, and keep going even when things get tough. From your story, it's clear that being patient, focusing on solving the right problems, and balancing both client acquisition and retention are all part of that journey. So I guess the big takeaway for everyone listening is don't be afraid to start imperfectly. Focus on the fundamentals and trust that with consistency and patience, we'll get there.
And with that, we close off this ChatGPT podcast interview. I really hope you like this format. I'll try it out. I'll try to improve on it as well. And maybe in the future, I'll just have one or two very specific questions, even without ChatGPT, that I'll dive into a bit more. So for anyone out there, I don't know what stage you are in, what your goals are, or whatever, right? But I do want to help you in whatever way I can. And for me, most of my achievements right now as a 26-year-old agency owner have been building my agency, client acquisition, client retention, hiring, building a remote team culture or a remote business culture. And if you are looking for any advice whatsoever on any of those specific topics, drop a question below and I'll try to answer your questions in a specific video, whether that's a short video or a long form video. I don't yet know because I don't know your questions. But yeah, that's just something that I want to close off with. If you have any questions regarding how to build an agency, how to acquire clients, how to retain clients, how to build a team, etc., just drop them below and I'll try to answer those in a next video. And for now, I want to wish you a very good day. Thanks for watching this video, and yeah, I hope to see you next time. Cheers.